All right, hey guys, if we haven't met, my name's Holly. I'm a full-time yoga instructor making videos that you can do at home during COVID-19. So today I'm gonna go over the third part of awkward utkatasana or chair pose in the Bikram 26 and 2 sequence. So for those of you who practice hot yoga regularly, this is a great tutorial for you that you can try at home. So as a reminder, there's 3 parts in awkward or chair pose in this sequence. I'll show you from the side. The first part, we have the feet hip width distance, arms parallel to the floor. We stick the butt out, bend the knees and sit down, leaning back, all the weights in the heels, okay? The second part, and all the other video tutorials are up as well. The second part, step back a little bit, we come up on the toes, so this time the heels are lifted, and then we bend the knees and sit down. So in both the first and second parts, we want to keep the feet and the knees hip width distance. So it's really just like the quads firing, arms firing, and the hips and knees moving in different directions at the beginning of class to wake up the lower body as well as the arms and the core. Really, this posture tones every part of the body. The third part, you're gonna keep your feet hip width distance. In transitions, notice if your feet are coming apart or in, or if your toes are turning in or out. For the third part, you wanna keep the feet exactly hip width distance, but this time you're gonna squeeze your knees and thighs together, and you're gonna let your heels come a little off the floor. I'll show you from the side. So you keep the feet where they are, hip width distance. You're not opening the feet more, closing the feet, or turning the toes in. You keep your feet hip width distance, you squeeze your knees, thighs together, and you let your heels come just a little bit off the floor. So in the second part, the heels were super lifted, right? In this third part, heels just a little bit off the floor, and then you're slowly going to sit down. Almost like an elevator ride. The slower you do, the better you do, especially towards the end, go even slower. So eventually stopping, notice if you're resting on your heels or your knees are up, you're gonna squeeze the knees together and forward, thighs parallel to the floor, whoop, arms parallel to the thighs, spine perfectly straight from the side, looks like you're holding a box. Stomach in, change, slowly push the floor away from you. Good, heels down, right foot back, arms down. Cool, so I'll show you from the front. Again, you've just come out of the second part of awkward. This time, you're gonna squeeze the knees and thighs together. Let your heels come a little off the floor. Notice if you're leaning forward and the butt is sticking out. Push the hips forward, lean back, keep your spine straight, and slowly sit down to a count of 10 in your head. Now you can stop at any point, right? If you have bad knees, you can stop. You might even put your hands on the floor to help yourself in. Eventually going down with control. Notice if the knees want to come apart. Try to squeeze inner thighs together and then squeeze your knees together and forward. So if you had a tennis ball, it should roll forward. Let me grab a baseball actually. So I want to squeeze my knees together and forward. See how here the ball's just like sitting, my knees are up. I'm going to squeeze the knees together and forward so the baseball or the tennis ball can roll forward. All right, I'll show you again from the side. Gosh, I miss baseball. Okay, here, my knees are higher than my hips and the ball is just like sitting here. I'm gonna try to squeeze the knees together and forward so that the ball can roll forward, yeah? So some tips and tricks, again, you don't have to sit all the way down. You can also use your hands to push up. And if you get down and you're like, I can't get back up, that's okay. Put your hands on the floor, come up how you need to. But eventually, you're gonna come out the same way you went in, knees together, I should say, feet apart the whole time. So again, throughout the posture, notice if your toes are turning in or out. You want to keep the feet exactly hip width distance. This posture is so good for waking up the inner thighs, the outer thighs. Again, this part of this posture comes towards the beginning of class. It's largely meant to like build a lot of strength in the body, wake up the muscles and the joints. Notice if the arms start to come apart, shoulders tensing up, elbows bending, shoulders down, fingers in line with the shoulders, tricep muscles tight the whole time, and chin away from your chest. So again, always leaning back a little bit so the spine stays perfectly straight from the side. Now let's talk about another thing in this style of yoga. Often in the third part, especially traditionally, right, in Bikram, there's this part where they say bounce and bounce and bounce like a motorcycle ride. Stop on an upswing to show control, and then slowly push the floor away from you. Okay, here's my opinion on bouncing in the third part. Reasons why I like bouncing in the third part. To me, it's almost cultural. It's like an old school hot yoga thing. You can go anywhere in the world and hear somebody say bounce and bounce and bounce like a motorcycle ride, and you're like, cool, I get it. I like that part of it. I think it can be good. The bouncing motion can be good for getting rid of scar tissue in the knees. Stopping on an upswing is really good for control. Here's the things that I don't like about bouncing. I think it can hurt you if you have bad knees. I think sometimes people become obsessed with bouncing, either from an ego perspective, that they want to show how strong and cool they are, or, and here's the big kicker, because it's really hard to sit still. And here's the thing about yoga. An asana, which we often translate to mean posture, is 3 parts. It's a posture in stillness with breath. So while the bouncing might feel good or cool, or it might build a little bit of strength, it's not really an asana. It's not part of utkatasana, not part of chair posture, right? Because it's not being held in stillness and breath. So my thought is, if the teacher offers like bounce and bounce and bounce, and you have healthy knees and you feel good, go for it. But also check yourself if you find like nobody's bouncing and you're like, I gotta bounce. Like, is that your ego talking? Is it your fear of sitting still? Or does it really feel good? Those are my thoughts on bouncing. I'll show you guys again. So feet hip width distance, knees together, slowly going in. You can bounce a couple times, but you want to keep the knees, thighs together. You want to stop on an upswing, that's the hard part, and then slowly push the floor away from you. So again, you want to reverse out. You came in with your knees, thighs together, and you want to come out with your knees, thighs together as well. That's my tutorial on the third part. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will see you guys soon.